So we're just recording now. So welcome everyone to the Aotearoa Conversations Session. Focus your who to maximise your impact. So we've got Kylie Bailey here from Goodsense as our facilitator. I'll hand over to Kylie. Thanks very much, Kylie.
Kia ora, Tan. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for joining our session today. It was wonderful to meet you earlier and, do a bit of a round of intros. And so, we're really here to do a class. So I said, have you got your pen and paper, or potentially you're into your coloured pencils, whatever you want, or the computer. But we're going to do a little bit of work today and provide you with some tools and resources that for whatever stage of your business you're at, and wherever you are at on the social enterprise journey, that you're really using some of these key techniques that we use as marketers to ensure that whatever your product or service may be, it's something that really connects with your target audience. And so, if you haven't met Goodsense before, kia ora te whānau, my name's Kylie. I've been a marketing consultant with Goodsense for the last 3 or 4 years, and we're a collaboration of quite senior communicators from around the country, all live in different places and work remotely, with the vision that co-creation is always yields much better results. And we really know that marketing has been used for a bit of not a force for good. Marketing has been used to sell people things that they don't need and that ruin the environment. And so we believe that marketing can actually be turned on its head, and we can use marketing as a force for good. So what we're going to do today is really just delve into some great little insights and tricks of how you can use the proven collaborative methods that we work with our clients to apply to your own vision or your own particular journey or next stage that you're wanting to step forward with. And I think there might just be one more person in the waiting room.
Just transitioning in, I think, Kylie. I have omitted them. Hopefully Zoom will do that for us soon.
All good, no problems. So I just want you to have a little think about either the product or service that you're thinking about creating, or the product or service that you're currently working on, and start to think about who would buy your product or service, or who would use what you are going to offer. I just want you to, take a bit of time to think about that while I'm taking you through this first part of the kōrero. And as you think about what that answer is, can you just pop that in the chat for us so that we can see that, and we'll start to pick that up further into the class. And I think it's funny when you start your own business, and I've been a health entrepreneur for the last 6 years. I write health books and I'm a yoga teacher in my other life. And so, I always really appreciate a lot of what we're doing when we're creating these businesses that are driven from a place of vision and values and passion, is that we are really leaning into our why. And, just a couple of hand signals through the session are helpful. So if you do want to ask a question and you don't want to do the chat, you can just put up one finger. If somebody's got one finger up, go for finger 2, and and then we go down the line. And if you really like what we're saying, you can give us this, which is a virtual hug and a wave. So that's just a way that we can communicate. But really, how many of you have heard of Simon Sinek's TED Talk, which is Start with the Why? How many of you have seen it? If you haven't seen it, definitely, it's worth a watch. But what's really interesting about his piece is it's very much all about how social entrepreneurs can activate their purpose. And I'm getting a few thumbs up, so those reactions are looking good. It also looks at the how and the what. And so this is a really interesting strategy, and it's very useful, so definitely go and check it out. But while Simon Sinek is great, from a Goodsense perspective, we've kind of got a little bone to pick with him because, I wouldn't say it's a big bone. I'd probably say it's something minor like a metatarsal, like one of those little bones in your feet. But the bit that he's left out is the missing W. And that missing W is who. So definitely start with your why. Definitely understand your how and your what. But where the real magic happens, where your product or service will connect in a hearts and minds way that will drive vision and values communication, is 100% through your who. And so you really want to, throughout this class, just start to bring your, laser focus into where does my who sit and who are they? And that's what we'll be doing throughout the session. So we're going to look at both business to consumer tools and also business to business tools. So you will, when I do a screen share on this, you'll be able to see those slides come up, and as they come up, you will be able to just screenshot them, and then you've got that table there. And the intention is that it's our gift to you, where you can just use that as you feel fit, and you can use that table for all sorts of things. So with that in mind, when we think about the who, it's not necessarily an approach that many organisations take. In fact, often what we find as a group of marketers who come into the environment and are coming in as an external consultancy, we often find that organisations haven't necessarily thought about all the different people that they touch. And when we think about this from a social enterprise perspective and building, businesses that are better for planet and people, that's all of us there at Goodsense. But really, what we're wanting to focus on is, who are your people, and how can you use storytelling and marketing and communications to bring them together? And that is essentially what today's session really is focused on. We're going to get you to start to look at those audiences and stakeholder groups that might exist around your current organisation or your potential idea. It doesn't really matter, but if you're starting from the get-go of thinking about who your holistic community is, and you're starting to figure out ways to talk to them, you've already done half of the work that you need to do as a good marketer, just to kickstart the marketing and communication side of the social enterprise. And so we often find ourselves at Goodsense being slightly obsessed with the who. And, we really do our best to make our clients pretty obsessive about it too. Really, what you want is when you are talking from the heart and when you are sharing sharing the kaupapa of the organisation. So kaupapa, that deep cultural root that exists within the organisation that binds together the holism of what social enterprise is all about. You want who guiding you every single step of the way. And so the most difficult thing to do, and we're going to have a go with it shortly, is to figure out how to get that focus and really to know exactly who the audience is, and so that whatever you're doing, whether it's a presentation, you're at a show or an event, you're building a website, you're doing a social media post, there's so many different channels, you're doing a newsletter, there's so many different channels you can market and communicate to your audiences to, but every time you come from that step of the who. And so what I wanted to do was just take you into what we're going to work on in today's session. And just give me a moment. So if you get ready to do your screenshots, what I'll do is I'll share with you these two slides and I'll talk you through them. So if you are, a business to consumer business, you're thinking about what you may want to offer an individual. And so if this slide applies to you, you could take a screenshot of it now. But let's think about an example of a Goodcube client, and a client that I've been working with now for the last 4 months and really applying this process to. Goodcube are a shampoo and conditioning bar. I've actually got one under my desk here, and they're a shampoo and conditioning bar who are basically keen to rid the world of plastics. And so they've created this beautiful range, but what we know about their audience is that they are really not a traditional marketing set. Like normally you'd have maybe a demographic. What we know about their audience is that they are of a broad age range, but the thing that ties them together is their value, that they don't want their beauty products and hair care to stuff up our oceans. And in fact, they need a product that goes one step further than that, that not only is about a post-plastics world, but that also performs really well. So we were able to extract that business to consumer audience out of this chart, which I'll just share again now. And so we've applied this same strategy for that client. The other thing that we did with Goodcube was we have used this table to determine what pharmacies are looking to do to satisfy their customer demand and give them something that's available in the supermarket. Give them something that's not available in the supermarket. So we use this table to really look at what was happening for the business-to-business relationship within Goodcube as well. So these are, really handy slides. And what I would suggest we do is, if everyone's got a screenshot of these now, and what I would like to do is just see if we can work individually. And I'm going to bring up the tables again, so you've got an opportunity to screenshot them again. But really our challenge today, the thing that we're going to do, do a little bit of work because we're here to have a class and get under the hood of something that's useful for you, is either you're going to look at the business to consumer table, or you are going to look at the business to business table, and you're going to try to fill out one or two of those rows. So has anybody not been able to screenshot? Does anyone need an opportunity to still do that? Yeah, you're good? Okay, cool, sweet. So what I'd like you to do now is just have a look at your table, start to think about one of those groups, and just over the next 5 minutes, you can turn your videos off, do what you want to do. If you want to go make a cup of tea and you can do it in 2 minutes, then go and do that too. But really just to start to fill out the table for yourselves, and then we'll get into a bit of a kōrero and a sharing once you've finished. So we'll take you to 3:30 to do your tables. And of course, if you've got any questions as you're thinking about this and this comes up, just ask them through in the chat and Tan and I will be there to assist. All good, Bruce, no problems at all. I'll just do my screen share now. So this one here, Bruce, is for if you are looking at your audience who are potentially a consumer. So who, like, what individuals that you can either selling to now or could be potential customers in the future or collaborators, who are they, who is most likely to want to have what you offer. And that's really, you're just looking at that first row and just filling out some of those drivers for that audience. The other option is to look at the business to business table. And this is for looking at a broader set of organizations and corporates or, retail partners, and then thinking about who in that set is most likely to want what you offer. And then you just fill out each of those rows, and we'll come back in together shortly. If you've got any more questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat. If you need a little bit more time. Does anyone need an extra minute? You do, Bruce? Yeah, no problems at all. So I'll just, kia ora, my name's Kylie. I'll just fill you in on what everyone's doing. We're not in a silent disco, but what we are doing is just a little classroom exercise. So I might just share my screen and you can have a look at Annie is having a silent disco, nice one. And you can have a look at the tables that everyone's filling out. And then as people share their findings, feel free to work on yours, because we've still got another half an hour left in the session, and I hope you can get a lot of value from it. So I'm just going to share my screen now, and this is just to show you the tables that people are working with. So feel free to take a screenshot of these, and what we're really just doing is thinking about the organization that we're creating, or the product or service, or potentially it's just a vision at this stage. And we're really looking at who is most likely to want to have or to use what you offer. And so this is a table for individuals. This is for business to consumer. So the idea is just to fill out one of these rows. The other table option is for organizations and corporates and for other businesses. And so that kind of wider stakeholder group. So feel free to take a screenshot of each of those and just see if you can work your way along the top of the first table, or alternatively, just feel free to listen in on the findings that everyone's been working really, really hard on. So has somebody got a burning desire to go first? Yeah, go Coco, okay.
Well, it was tough for me. So my service is like, it looks like to be serving to a consumer. So do I have to?
Brilliant.
Yeah. So one consumer I put in my mind. He lives with his mom because he has disability, and then he's 25 years old, and then his attitude and values, just make the most of the day. That's all. And then his contribution activities, he goes to a center which is like kindy. Kindy is a kindy thing, but for the people with disability, they get together and they do the activity together. And then, what was the fifth one? I can't remember.
So the fifth one is who would they be influenced by?
Who would be influenced by? Not much, but just a few people around him.
So maybe like close friends and family, and trusted, trusted people in the trusted circle, really.
Trusted circle, yes, that's right. And then, what's most helpful?
You're doing very well, Coco.
Yeah, it will be fun for him, and also it will be healthy for him. Yeah. So the problem is, this is not quite what I wanted. I wanted to do like the impact for the business to business thing, but I didn't have any idea coming up, so I gave up.
Okay, well that's interesting. That's an interesting challenge for us to lean into. Yeah. What I think we'll do is, does anybody else want to, and you don't have to, but if you'd like to reflect and share, Would anyone else like to share one of their examples? And we can come back to that a little bit later in the session, Coco.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Just to help you figure out how to identify those people. Who wants to go next? Does anyone else want to reflect? Got any more takers? So what I think is interesting is, maybe we've got Helene.
I'm happy to share, unless you want to move on to the next part for the benefit of time.
No, a couple of examples is good because it just gives us something to workshop. Yeah. Okay,
so I'll tell you about me. So my new like 3 months old, if that, business is called Pocket Knife. So I kind of do what I used to do at the Akina Foundation, but for quite a large range of audiences. So that's one of my challenges in a way, because I know what I'm offering. I'm offering business support to individuals or community organizations or larger organizations or government agencies in order to create thriving communities in thriving places. But I'm actually very keen to work across a really large range of projects and with a really large range of customers, which sometimes from a marketing point of view is a challenge, because when you are more focused, it's sometimes easier for people to buy your services, right? Anyway, so I chose one example, which is a community group. A community group can be, and actually is already, one of my customers. So yeah, so you think about a small community group that is usually quite under-resourced and based on volunteering effort. So in terms of their, culture, values, obviously, like they are people who get together that are motivated by creating, positive social impact for their community. And their role, their kind of decision-making process is obviously like both community-led, as well as usually having a volunteering board, and being quite informed by local government policies and local funding as well. Their needs and should I carry on? Sorry.
Yeah, it's really great. It's interesting because we've got two very different examples we can discuss.
Yeah. So their needs and pains are around capacity and resourcing, of course, quite often around capability, lack of capability as well, in no judgmental way. And also they don't usually have visibility on other similar community groups or initiatives throughout the country or even internationally, because they don't have the time or the headspace to actually have that visibility and that inspiration and that kind of sounding board. And so what I think can be most helpful to them is not only my fresh eyes in terms of bringing a strategic perspective to their work, but also, creating some connections that they may not have with other community groups or funders or other social enterprises or any sort of organization that may be working towards the same impact area or doing similar work with the same similar constraints, as well as helping with connections with funders. Because my background was in comms and storytelling as well, that's something that I bring to the table too, which they usually lack the capacity and capability to do in order to push their effort forward and to put them, under the spotlight.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing, Helene. That was really interesting. So we've got two quite different examples there, and just to double check, does anybody else feel a burning need to share, or are we okay to move on and maybe analyze some of these examples? Cool. Okay. So, two really quite unique, different opportunities there in terms of talking to audiences and in terms of really digging into your who. Just, for all of you, give me a thumbs up if you think this worked, give me a thumbs down if it didn't, and give me like a thumbs on the side if it was 50-50. Did this exercise in planning help you think a little bit deeper about what challenges or opportunities are there for your audiences? 50-50? Thumbs up. 50-50. Okay. And so, you know, the thing that we talked about at the very beginning was when it comes to audiences, it's all about focus. And so often what you'll find is if you've gone very broad rather than quite narrow, it can be very difficult to identify those attitudinal values. But really, those are what you're talking to when you're talking to and communicating with any consumer or stakeholder organization that has the same values as you do. And for anyone who's in the social enterprise space, there is many more bottom lines than just the old school bottom line. And so we need to think about a more innovative way of connecting and communicating. And so really, I encourage you to spend a bit of time on those tables and just see if you can get them working for you so that you can really identify the drivers. And I think Helene's was a good example in that community groups, like a local community group, it's quite specific. And so when she starts to tease out those different things that audience are dealing with, we get a really cohesive picture of the who. And equally with Coco's example, which, you know, one is a one-to-many example, one is a one-to-one example, and they're quite different ends of the spectrum in some ways, particularly all the different, you know, organizations or people that they would connect with. But what I think is interesting is just in those moments, you started to get a real picture of what are the ways that we could be talking to that audience in order to connect them with our vision, values, and purpose. And so that's really the challenge, or the I guess the thing that can look really easy when it's done really well, but can actually be, as an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur, really hard to identify, is, you know, what is the alchemy of that who? And you'll see on those tables that there's clearly, you know, contextually there's three groups. It's asking you to be quite brutal about how you know, cut down your sector, because you can't have the whole audience. You need to be talking to the people that, you know, it's really, really going to connect with. And so I'd just like to, in the last, you know, sort of 10, 15 minutes, is just pick up on Coco's question, I guess, around, I tried to fill out that second table, but I wasn't really sure. Do you want to just take us a little bit more into your thinking, Coco, just so that we can understand, you know, what barriers you found?
Yes. So sorry. So the group I want to look at is like a community or the police, or so, because I believe this will lead to low, you know, reducing the crime rate eventually. So, but when I said that, I can't really identify that location or culture and value, and I wasn't sure what to do there. Yeah. Make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. And I think, you know, when you're kind of a little bit unsure what to do, and particularly around this situation where there's almost a big question mark around the who, and it's no surprise that at this point in the class we have got a question mark slide. You know, this is a session that's really designed to make you think and to challenge the grey matter, and, you know, it might be something you need to sleep on for a few nights, and then you may wake up at 3 in the morning and go, okay. When it comes to your organizations and looking at how you can have a wider impact on a bigger group, it really doesn't matter whether you are, you know, like Helene, there's so many different audiences, right? There's local government and public sector, and, you know, there's so many within just that one group. What I think is really important is when you're in the first stages, you really just want to look at who could I work with initially that could help me create the type of social impact that I'm after. And when you think about an organisation like the police, and you think about your business and your product, Coco, it's that business model is almost something that you would want to be going to talk to, say, the New Zealand Police Association about, because it's about getting, you know, all of the organisation in New Zealand to understand the benefits of this and to adopt it. So it might be that first priority audience initially in the brainstorm is police, but you may go away and think about, you know, a lot more deeply about those drivers behind what you're wanting to do and what that audience is wanting to do. And that's really where the planning and the table piece comes into it, because it means that you can come back to this table as many times as you need to, and you can continue to fill out, you know, group one might start as police, and then, you know, you go, okay, type and location, or I'm not sure about that. So you have a think about what type of impact do I want to create, and why do I think it's the police that are most likely to want what I'm offering? And so you keep going back to this question and then applying it to each one of these boxes. And, you know, you may find that you have multiple points for each of these things. And you may find that after doing this table for the first time around and then having a really good think about the three groups that you most want to target, that the police kind of falls out of that mix. But what this gives you an opportunity to do is walk a mile in the shoes of your customer or of your potential collaborator. And it means that you can then be quite strategic about how you use marketing and communications to engage with that audience. And, you know, marketing and communications are everything from the email that you send, the signature that's on your email, right through to, you know, doing a newsletter or getting the head of the New Zealand Police Association to sign up to your email database, because you know that you're sending out information all the time, and that even if it's one or two people in that organisation, that you're already reaching them. And so that's really the purpose of this tool, is to get you to dig under the hood of what seems to be a really simple exercise on the surface. But when you actually dig deep and you start to really understand who your customer is, or who are the people that can benefit your organisation and benefit your mission, you start to build these networks of influence. And in sustainability, you know, these networks of influence are actually vital for us to stay alive, because we have to be in an ecosystem where we're all working together and collaborating. So I really encourage you to think about three groups, and then just over time, just apply that exercise. And, you know, I do this myself. I'll take a little notebook with me, and, you know, every so often I'll be jotting down ideas around where, you know, the potential who is for different businesses that I work with. And so, you know, what I'd just like to share with you now is just a little bit of a look at the 4 different types of buyer behaviour, because I think that this could be helpful for you as you're thinking about how you identify that who. And when we think about buyer behaviour, you know, in the way that you communicate with your audiences, there are really 4 key things that they are going to be using to decide. And I would say not just to decide, but to also potentially influence. So in today's world, we are consumers and we are also collaborators, because we recommend to one another different products and services that match with our values and vision. And so if you can kind of look at all 4 kinds of buyer behavior and really have those entrenched in your marketing and communications, you know that it's a job well done. So this little guy on the left here, the Speedy Post Courier, he is all about facts and action. You know, can I get it done yesterday, and will I win? Now, the win in this case is a win that's driven by the need to be involved in creating social impact through the commercial choices that we make. So that you could argue that there's a subset of people that who are inherently attracted to working with and collaborating with businesses that are working in the social impact space, simply because, you know, it's creating that idea of winning together. The second thing that buyers really look at is, what are the details? What is the research behind this? So can you back up what you're saying? And lastly, and really important for a lot of people, is, what are your credentials? So how do you have the opportunity or the, the authority and the knowledge to be talking and working within this space? So those are the first two. The third one is looking at, in your audience, who are the people who are involved, and then take it one step further. Who are the people who are impacted, and who are the people who have had the reward or been rewarded from it? So a good example of that is testimonials. You know, a few key testimonials from one of those one or two key groups of partner organisations or stakeholder organisations that you may work with, placed on your website, might just be the thing that gets you that next collaboration. And so, you know, that community aspect to what we're doing and the collaborative aspect is really important. And lastly, you know, all these little spirals and stars over here in the rainbow burst are really about the brightness. So what about your product, service, or vision is bright, shiny, new, innovative, different? And, you know, you may find that what drops out of that last, you know, deep dive into understanding how the thing that you've created is new, bright, shiny, special, or unique, you know, a lot of that is going to come out of your passion for your why. So your passion for why you have created what you've created, the thing that gets you up in the morning, and the reason that, you know, you are driven with the visions that you have. And so it's really important that we have the suite of all four, because it means that every time we send a communication and we know who we're targeting, we know that we're really going to hit the mark. And so that's why I really encourage you to start to think about, how do you lean into your who, and how do you give it just as much as importance, if not more importance, as your why. And the last thing I kind of want to touch on is just, you know, it's really important to have some methodology and some process and system behind how you figure this stuff out. And to give yourself the opportunity with a cup of tea or a glass of wine, just to sit down and to really blue sky this stuff. And then once you've done, and when I mean blue sky, I just mean like think with no limits. If there was an opportunity to think whatever you could be possible in your wildest dreams, you allow that to flow through. But then you come back to a resource like the table and you put it into a structure and you think about a timeline. So, you know, in business planning, where we might think about, you know, you may be planning in quarters. It's maybe a bit old school. You might be planning in, you know, in a 12-month period. But you can apply this methodology for whatever period you set. And sometimes I find that that is a really helpful thing in my process and in the Goodsense process that we're able to do, because it lets us get very creative, but then it allows us to come back into a structure. And so for any client, you know, we're able to go, well, for the next 12 months, you know, these are the 3 groups that we're clearly focusing on. And, you know, when we think about a cube, which, you know, shampoo and conditioner in a cube, not in a plastic bottle, hanging in your shower, and, you know, it's a 2-in-1, so it's quicker than normal shampoo, so less water down the drain. That just gives you a bit of a taste, and it saves at least 8 plastic bottles from the environment, every one of these you use. That's just a little taste of how we have used the audience and really understanding in that first table that this business speaks to a broad range of women who really are driven by not wanting to contribute any plastic into the environment in any way, shape or form. So they compost, they garden, they buy home compostable, and they make sure that they buy clean beauty products that are 100% traceable. And so we're very clear on the who. And that has allowed us to, you know, this brand has just launched, and it actually launched into media today, and they've got a whole lot of coverage around that for the consumer. But equally, we've been able to apply that second table so that we can really understand the other parts or other organisations that we could be collaborating with. And the key thing that we found was, because this is a cube that can be bought in the pharmacy rather than the supermarket, we realised that for our retailers, this really offers something that's fresh and new. And, you know, I think in the latest Better Futures report in April, 84% of New Zealanders will not buy something that has any relationship to plastics. So, I mean, you're talking about a vast portion of the population that, you know, just aren't anymore. And this is a new sector, shampoo in cubes. What that has meant is that we're able to tailor the communications for those pharmacies as well. And that has allowed us to not only, you know, bring the distribution on board or the volume, it's also allowed us to have a really beautiful community conversation with some of the pharmacists around how they're working with their staff to ensure that, you know, every day is a post-plastics day, that it's a plastic-free world, and that they are getting behind that and committing to that value set. Now, you can imagine when it comes time for either the retailer or the consumer to choose what brand they go with. It's like, if they know all that behind the story, you know, it then becomes a very, very powerful driver for how you pull that through your business at both a, you know, at a revenue perspective, to be perfectly honest. So that's kind of a working example from today, and I think we've got a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to open the floor and see if anyone's got anything to share. And I think, Nick, you might have joined us a little bit late, but hopefully you've got a bit of value in the session, and if you didn't get those tables, let us know and we can send them to you, no problems at all. But I'll hand back over to Tan now, I think, and there's a little bit of stuff in the chat too, so if you need some detail there, Tan's been very helpful with the notes.
Wow, what's covered so much, Kylie. It's always good to do and dig deep, isn't it? I always find that the framework could be simple, but I think it takes multiple iterations with these to do it today, look at it tomorrow. What does your mind reflect on?
Yeah, and sometimes you're walking down the street and you see something, right? And you go, oh, okay. And that's where you want your notebook, because you get it out and jot it down.
Yeah,
another thing you said that's so true is, you know, when you mentioned when it's well done, it's so obvious, but it's one of these things, right? There's always a lot of work that goes behind it. And I have to confess, I worked in comms and marketing for 10 years. And when I started looking at my own business, you know, it's a different story when you look at yourself and want to actually crack your value proposition. It's way more difficult, isn't it, than advising someone else. But yeah, when it's well done, it's just so obvious and it looks so natural and easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a really good point.
And just remember that you've all.
You go, Kylie.
I think it's the connection.
You go. Keep going, Tan.
No, I was just going to back it up and just say I think that
it is the connection.
Is it lagging a bit?
Yeah, I think there's a delay. That's why Kelly's here.
Kylie, hopefully the technology is back with us. Just in terms of next steps, are you happy to share your details if people wanted to contact you and talk a little bit more? It's entirely up to you there what you're up for.
Yeah, absolutely, no problems at all. I think we might have a little bit of a technology lag, but luckily it's 4 o'clock, so my video internet at Piha sometimes isn't the best when there's a load on the system.
We can take a little bit of technology lapse for the location, can't we? You've been absolutely brilliant. I think I'm sure that most people, if not all, would have got a lot of value out of your session, and I'm sure when they wake up tomorrow, hopefully as well, to reflect a little bit of who the who is. So thank you very much, Kylie, and the good people of Goodsense.